We're talking wedges all night long. Let's do this! It's time for Proving It, presented by Titleist. All 50-yard shots are not the same. They're different. I want to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. This is a 50-yard shot. This is slightly downhill, and it's a front hole location. Now, what many of you do is you go to a 50-yard shot, and you think that they're all the same. And they're not all the same. You have to attack 50-yard shots completely differently. First thing that you look at is, what does my lie look like? Do I have a good lie? Am I in the fairway? Am I not in the fairway? Am I in the rough? What's going on there? Second is, what's it look like up on the green? So this situation here, I've got a 50-yard shot, front hole location, bunker to the back and to the right of this. So I've got really two different types of shots that I can hit here that can be effective. One of the shots that I can hit is, I could just go ahead and try and land this at 50 and just go, well, you know what? It's not going to spin that much. I don't really have to worry about what happens when this gets on the ground. And what you end up doing is you end up hitting it longer than you want to hit it, and now you end up in the rough, okay? Now, that's the way many of you play the shot. Here's what I'm going to tell you to do when you hit this shot. First, I want you to approach this like you're the best. You might not be today, but you may be. But you can control your mind the way you want it to be controlled by looking at this through a different light. And the way you see this shot is, my miss is over to the left-hand side, not to the right. So when I'm hitting this shot, I'm not necessarily trying to hit this right at the flag. I'm hitting this just slightly left of the flag. And I want to hit this shot about 53 yards in the air, and then I want to spin it back. Now I know many of you going, wait, 53, how do I control 53? I'm going to get to that in a second. How do I control the spin back? I'm going to get to that in a second too. Here's what I want you to do. We're trying to get 53 out of this with a little bit of backspin, just slightly left. Now let's see how I did. And spin it back. Now, come on up here. Because through the magic of television, this is exactly what happened. This is not a tape. I don't want you to say that. By the way, if it hadn't gone exactly 53, I probably wouldn't have come up here, because that's the way I am. I know me. Here's the way this works. It landed 53. It spun back to 50.9. So I've got myself maybe a couple foot putt here. And what I did was I got that spin up to 8,700. My launch angle is right around 31 degrees, which is excellent. My apex is at 28. So all these numbers are really good. But the key is that I look at that shot from a different standpoint, which is front hole location. I'm going to attack it from behind it and bring it back, and also slightly to the left, which is what you saw there. Now, how do we execute this shot? Well, the first thing we want to do is, I'm going to grip this club just slightly open. So I'm just going to grip it just ever so slightly open. That's going to give me a little bit more spin. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have some width in this shot. If I take the club and I hinge it with my hands here and I stab down into it, I'm not going to have enough spin. That ball, when it hits, will land and then it will release. I've got to make sure that I have some width. So my right arm is going to stay pretty long. And that's going to allow this club to be kind of shallow as it comes into the strike, which is going to throw my spin up. Not necessarily throw my trajectory up, but throw my spin up. And then finally, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to use my body, not my arms and hands. Now, I'm going to show you what I mean when I use my arms and hands on this one. So what I'm going to do when I come through here is I'm going to let my forearms close down. I'm going to let this toe turn over the heel. And watch the spin right there. I'm going to call it 8,700. It's 86.84. But I'm going to call it 8,700. Now watch what happens on this one. So now I have a little bit of release to that. It's still spun back, but here's what I want you to see. So come on up here again. Now, what you're going to notice is my backspin now went to 72.60. So I lost, 87, about 1,500 RPMs of spin on that by letting that thing rotate over. And what you also notice is I got some left spin there. A couple other things happened too. One was I flighted it up into the air. That thing got to an apex of 32. possibly only went 4 yards more. That's not the case. The case is that when you come in and you start chucking the club or letting the club rotate over, it's going to throw the ball up into the air for you, and that's going to also put a little bit of hook spin on it, but it's also going to take some spin out. So as I start to let my forearms get a little bit too aggressive with that shot, I lose some spin. Now, when we start to take this shot and we start executing body rotation and minimizing forearm rotation, so I want you to be really, really careful or aware of the forearm rotation here. So when we come into the shot, I don't want to see this. I want to see this. And you're going to get the feeling that your lead elbow is going to be pointing towards that target as it goes through. I'm not going to let the forearm rotate over. So let's see if we can execute that again. Body is rotating, forearms are not rotating. Didn't quite hit this as hard as I wanted to hit it. And what you can see is spin went up, that thing kicks over to the left-hand side. So as you're hitting these shots, what I want you to pay attention to is what you're doing with the rotation of the body and what you're doing with the rotation of the forearm. The rotation of the forearms will take spin out. The rotation of the body is going to help take spin out because I'm taking out the spinning of the club shaft. Spinning of the club shaft like this is going to create a shot that's not going to have as much spin. And when you start to take out spin, when you have a 50-yard shot where that whole location is in the front of the green, that's when you need to maximize spin. So we get into having maximum spin. I want a wide arc here, and then I want body rotation there with no rotation, no forearm rotation, just all body rotation. Let's see what we get here. So that one there, let's come on up to the board. Let's see what the board tells us. Board tells us I carried that about 53.6, so a very good shot. Came back to 52, so I've got myself about a 6-foot putt there. Spin rate right at 8,600 again. That's the consistency that I'm trying to get. When you start to do this properly with the body rotating, the forearms not rotating, and that width in the backswing, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get some consistency with this shot, and you're going to understand that not all 50-yard shots are the same. They vary, and you have to pay attention to what's the angle, what's the lie that this ball is sitting in the grass, and then what's the position of the flag when it's on the green. Is it in the front? Is it in the back? Is there a mound back there? Do you have to go over a knob? What is it that you have to deal with? You have to make sure that you understand spin can be your friend and how you're going to attack that front hole location. It's not on this particular shot. It's not from the front. It's from behind and slightly to the left because of that bunker. And what you'll notice about all those shots that I have up there, they all are on the left-hand side. That's proven it. Presented by Titleist. It's time for a grip tip, presented by Golf Pride. We're back. We're on the 17th hole at TPC Sawgrass. The memory that comes to my mind, and it's a fine memory, it's a memory of a year ago when the unimaginable happened. Here we go. Oh yeah, solid shot there. Not a lot of curve. Kind of going right at the, whoa, it went in the hole. Oh my God. Yo, nice work. That drink's on you. Holy cow. Hey, Greg, you got to play that again. 11 years I've been doing this, and I've never done this before. We took the flag out of the hole. Watch this thing with the tracer on. Bink, right in the hole. Holy cow. Yep. That's what happens in my mind. Now, what happens to you? You start thinking about all the bad shots that you have. You start thinking about the one that you embarrassed yourself when you were with your grandfather and you hit it into the water, or the one where you were with your spouse and dunked that thing or topped it, did something silly. You can't think about that. You got to go to Positive Town. Don't go to Negative Town. Go to Positive Town, which is where I go. I'm going to Positive Town. Come on with me. Now, here's how you get to Positive Town. You let all those different things get into your mind, and then you let them get away from you. And what I want you to do is I want you to pick a high target. You don't have to go right at the flag here. You don't have to be Ricky Fowler, Brooks Koepka, or any of those other guys, Rory McIlroy. Doesn't matter. What you got to do is get this on the green, because the story that you're going to tell is, I hit it on the green at 17. So you get yourself a nice high target there. The other thing I want you to do is I don't want you to go to your worst golf ball that you have in your bag. You just do that too often. And by the way, that golf ball isn't going to cooperate. It didn't cooperate on the other shots. Why is it going to cooperate now? Plus, it probably is going 5 yards shorter than it should, which means you're going to hit it in the water anyway. Don't do that. Get yourself a good ball, nice little Pearl, maybe a Pro V1, Pro V1X, something like that. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get in your mind of where you want to hit this ball. I want to hit this thing right at the target. That's where I am, because I do think I'm that good. I deserve this. I need another hole-in-one again. So I've got a target picked out right over there, and I'm going to hit a little cut off of that thing, 139 yards. Nice solid strike there, just a little to the left of the flag. Okay, I didn't make a hole-in-one, but you know what I did do? I hit the target I was trying to hit. And when I start looking at my target, what I'm doing is I'm picking small targets in my mind. I'm not picking a gap. I'm picking the leaf on the limb of the tree that's sticking out, that's the third one down from the very top. That's what I'm seeing in my mind. And I'm making sure that I'm picking that up every single time. Now, when you get into this, what I also want you to do is I want to make sure that you have that image in your mind. So you have that limb in your mind. I can see that right there. And now I'm hitting it right at that. And again, that's not going directly at the flag. It's going right at the limb on that tree, and it's safely on the green. And what you're going to find as you start to pick small targets and you start to pick high targets and you start to think about good things, what you're going to get is you're going to get good results. That one there, I wanted to hit it 139 yards. It went 139.7 yards. So I'm pin high, just a little to the left. The water was never in play. I've got a putt for birdie. And you know what? I've got a good story that I'm going to tell all the people that I love in my life and go, you'll never believe it, but on the 17th hole, I hit that up there and they're going to go, isn't that the hole you made the hole-in-one? I go, yes, it is. It's the hole that I made a hole-in-one on last year. But that didn't happen this year. Instead, I played away from the flag because I have enough holes in one. I don't need any more. I'm just going to be pin high left, and I'm going to putt for my birdie. By the way, I'm going to make that putt because that's what happens in my dreams, and that's what needs to happen in yours. You need to make sure that you are thinking positive thoughts. Pick high targets. Commit to that target. Trust your swing, and don't put a bad ball on that tee. Give yourself a good ball. That's a grip tip presented by Golf Proud. It's time for a transformational tip presented by Morgan Franklin. One of the most important things that you can do is get your pitching wedge, not your sand wedge, your pitching wedge, and go to the short game area and start hitting some shots with it. And I'm going to show you why this is so important. Understanding that a pitching wedge is a wonderful option for most shots from around the 50-yard distance is to understand that you don't have to hit a ball that's going to land and stop. Second thing is that you need to understand how to vary trajectories and vary spins. And you can do that really easily with a pitching wedge. What I mean by that is this. If I just take a stock pitching wedge, grip down on it just a little bit, I should probably land this about, I'm going to say about 40 yards, and it should roll out the rest of the way. So let's see what we got there. That was pretty good. Come on up here. This is pretty good, actually. Sometimes I do these things. They make me laugh. I got to be honest. That one there flew about 40.6 yards. It was about 40 yards. And it rolled out to about 50. Rolled out to about 50 yards, 50.4. So having spent some time in here with a pitching wedge experimenting with this, I was able to hit that shot to, I don't know, maybe that's 3 feet, something like that. I don't know. Pretty good shot. I'm maybe just a little bit to the left of the flag, but a pretty good shot. And what I'm trying to do when I'm trying to hit that shot is I'm just trying to feel the distance. Now we start to get into the numbers a little bit. That one there had about 4,000 RPMs of backspin. Now, how do I create more backspin? What are some of the things that I can do to create more backspin? Well, one of the things that I can do to create more backspin is just grip the club a little bit more open. So when I grip it a little bit more open here, do the exact same thing. Now I hit that shot. And that one there, come on up here because that was fun. So that one flew a little bit more. That one flew to 42. So I flew that 2 yards farther. And yet it only rolled out to 46.6. So it rolled out about 4 yards less. Why? Because I had 5,300 RPMs of backspin as opposed to 4,000 RPMs of backspin. How did that happen? By simply adding a little bit more loft. When I changed the loft of the golf club, what I did was I made it so that I could hit it a little bit harder, and it's not going to go any farther necessarily. It might fly a little farther, but it's not going to go any farther because my spin rate's going to go up. What also happened on that shot was it went to the right. Why did it go to the right? Because I opened up the club face. It's a simple thing. So if I've got a shot where I don't want this to go to the left, let's say I've got a left shot over there on my 50-yard shot. I don't want it to get to the left, so I open up the club face with a little pitching wedge. And then I hit that shot, and what you're going to notice is that golf ball is going to end up getting to the right of the flag. That one had 317 RPMs of right spin, solely because I opened up the club face. And that also had almost 5,100 RPMs of backspin. Now, let's say we do the opposite. Now I'm going to take the club face and I'm just going to toe the club face in a little bit. Watch what happens to this one. This one's going to get a little left, and you guessed it, it's going to have less spin. So this comes out. Now watch this thing roll out. This rolls out to right around 50. Actually, it rolled out exactly to 50. But what's fun here is I only carried that 36 yards. So it rolled out 14 yards. And come down here to this spin, that thing got to about 35, 85. So I had even less spin just by taking the club face and towing it in. What I also got was I got a left launch and I got left spin. Left spin is going to tend to create a little bit more release to it for me. And when I get right spin, because in this shot I've added more loft, it's going to have a little bit more backspin. So I'm looking at those two numbers. Now, as I'm starting to hit this shot, what I also want to be able to do is I also want to be able to vary trajectories, as I just did. That one there, apexed at 14 feet, had a vertical launch of 25.7. By opening or closing the face, I can change the loft and the apex. So here's a little bit more loft, open up like that. Now remember that launched at 25.7. This one here had 29.1, flew it to about 42, rolled out to about 47.6, and again, right around 5,000 RPMs of backspin, just by messing with the club face. And I encourage you to experiment with the club face. See what you can do to create varying shots. Now, the last thing I want you to understand is when I want to create a little bit more trajectory, a little bit more spin, I can still do that with this pitching wedge, but I now have to make an alteration. And one of the alterations that I'm going to make is I'm not going to grip down anymore. I'm going to go right back up to where I was before. So I get a little farther from it. That's going to change my angle of attack. And I'm going to move the ball forward in my stance and open it up. So now my ball is going to be way up here. Club face is a little bit open now. Now watch what happens with this one. Now I can make a huge swing right there. And that one there flies way up into the air. Come on up here and just see how this is different. So my backspin there now all of a sudden went up to 64.14, right? So that's well up from the 35.85 that I had when I closed that club face. It's almost double. Not quite, but almost double. And look at my vertical launch. It goes up to 34 degrees. The apex was at 24. Remember, I think I was at 14. All these things are available to you, and all you have to do is have permission to go practice it. So what am I doing? I'm giving you permission, because there's a lot of different ways to hit 50-yard shots. And pitching wedge is going to teach you how to hit all these different shots, understanding closing the face, opening the face, gripping down, extending up on the length, doing all these different things will give your imagination a little freedom. And you'll start to understand, hey, I've got a right hole location. I want this to release over to the right, or I want it to release to the left. These are things that you see on television every single week. And you wonder, how are they doing that? Well, you know what? Here's one of the ways they're doing it. It's important for you to realize that if you really want to transform your game, get out there with that pitching wedge and experiment with lofts, experiment with different grip types. I am telling you, when you start to do that, you're going to transform your game. That's our transformational tip presented by Morgan Franklin. It's time for an FJ fix. We've told you before, not all 50-yard shots are the same. And this one is a little bit different. This shot here is 50 yards, but over half of it is really on the green. This whole location's all the way in the back. Now, I've showed you before about hitting this shot with a 58-degree wedge. Now what I want to do is I want to take some spin out. And the reason why I want spin out is I don't want to have to fly it all the way back there and allow for this ball to come back to me. What I want is I want this to come in a little bit low, take one bounce and stop. And the way I'm doing that is by shifting clubs. I'm going to my 54-degree wedge. And as I go to this 54-degree wedge, now I'm starting to see a little bit more of a penetrating shot, and I'm trying to carry this shot to about 45 yards. The 50 yards is the maximum. I don't want this to go 50 yards. In my mind, I'm thinking 48, maybe 49. I'm not going 50. And I know, again, you're going to hear through this little wedge thing that we're talking about, you've got to think like the best in order to become better. So a simple thing. So you sit there and you go, okay, 48 to 49 yard shot. Here, I'm visualizing the shot. I'm seeing the trajectory of the shot. That was perfect. I just didn't put it into the area for it to get hit. Make sure it's in there. Okay, now let's try that again. Already got one 48-yard shot. See if we can get two in a row. And, okay, so I flew that right at 50. So I missed that by just a little bit. But what you noticed about that shot is after it hit, and it landed at 50.3. It released 6 feet. My spin rate was at 6,400. That's a really big number. My apex is at 27. My launch condition right there about 29.5. So as I start to look at what my 54-degree wedge is doing, I'm now starting to factor in, okay, so just a normal little shot for me when I'm just hitting 50, I'm going to get about 2 feet of rollout. That's why I was saying I was trying to get it to 48, because that 2 feet of rollout is going to get me at 50. I don't want this thing to get past 50. That's not what I'm doing. I've got myself a different putt here. I don't want that putt that I just got, even though it's only about 6 or 7 feet. That's not the putt that I want. I want this putt to be underneath the hole. Now, how do I start to hit this shot? Well, one of the things that you're going to notice is I'm going to grip down on this club. I'm going to make sure that I make it a little bit shorter. So as I get in here and I make it a little shorter, now I'm a little bit more on top of it. And when I'm a little bit more on top of this ball, now what's going to happen is the steepness of the angle of approach is going to help take some spin out. So I grip down on that. Now I'm kind of on top of this here. And now I've hit that shot there. And what you're going to see is, because I'm not going to let that get past that hole, that one there is going to roll out about 2 feet again. That's that one bounce and stop shot that I'm hitting. And by gripping down, all it does is remind me to get a little closer to this shot. And by getting a little closer, I create that steeper angle of approach, which takes some spin out. That one there was at 6,200. And what you're going to notice with all these shots is they're going to be right around 6,000 to 6,500. That's what I'm going to get. And at that number, I'll get one bounce and then a stop. Okay? So in here again. There's my shot again. Oh, I like this one a lot. There's the one bounce, and there's the stop. That one flew to about 47 and rolled out to about 48. So I'm getting exactly what I want there. What I want you to understand is when you're hitting this shot, this again goes back to the body. I want you to feel like you're hitting this with your chest. So the image that you're getting here is that you're going to turn your chest back to about a 45-degree angle right to here, just like that. And then you're coming through and making sure that you're facing the target. When I get to where I go 45 and then over, I should get about 50 yards. That thing carried at about 48.7. So I know that with this particular club, when I turn to about 45 or what feels 45 for me and then go through without any added extra, I don't have to give it anything extra, I'm going to get about 48 yards out of that shot, 49 yards, right around that 50 number. Now, the other thing that you have to do is when you're coming through to hit that shot, I want you to feel as your chest is rotating through that your shoulders are pretty much coming through level. I don't want you to feel like you're going to add side bend here. I don't want any of that, because what happens when you do that is now you're going to start to shallow the club out. Side bend creates a shallow. And when you start to get a little bit of shallow, trajectory goes up into the air. So my vertical launch on that was 28.4. My apex was 24. Now watch what happens when I do this, and I'm going to just add side bend to this shot. Watch what happens to this shot here. Same thing. I'm going to get 45. And then side bend. Now, That one there went a lot farther than I wanted. It had a little bit more stop to it, but my apex there was 32 feet instead of 24, and my launch was 34.7. Come on up here. I won't tell you about it. Let's take a peek at it. You can see right here the vertical launch is about 35 degrees. I was right at about 29 before. So by adding that side bend, that took the ball up into the air. And though I had less backspin because I hit the ground first, it still stopped because my descent angle was a little bit steeper, and so it was a little bit softer. That flew to 49.6, and it rolled out about a half a foot. And so what we end up getting is, or a half a yard rather, what we end up getting there is an uncontrolled distance. We don't know exactly how far it's going to fly. We don't know exactly how it's going to react on the green. I want that ball to release. I don't want that ball to just hit and stop like that. I want to take I want it to skip. I want 6 feet out of this from where it lands to where it stops. And so as you're coming through that shot, your chest is rotating through, and you're almost feeling like you're like this with your body coming through the shot. So in other words, the upper part of my spine is almost in front of the lower part of the spine. It won't be that way, but that's what it's going to feel like. And so that shot right there went 51.5, and it rolled out to 53.5. There's my 2 yards of roll. That's what I'm trying to get. So what I'm telling you to do is this. Understand that when you have certain hole locations, we want to hit a certain type of shot. Back hole locations, I want to land it in front of it, and I want it to roll up to it. I'm doing that with a 53 or 54 degree wedge. It's not my lob wedge. It's my next wedge. And what I'm doing when I hit that is making sure that my body is rotating through the shot. I don't have a tremendous amount of arm and hand activity in that. I'm using my 45 degree turn in the shoulder and the backswing. I'm coming through that just like that in the through swing. It comes up just short of the flag, which is excellent right there, and it rolls out about 2 feet. Now, in order for you to be able to get good at these various shots, you've got to get out there and practice. What I see so many of you do is just grab one wedge and stand there and hit those shots the same after the same after the same all day long, not really having an idea of what you're trying to do. Here's what I recommend. Get yourself a little towel, go out to the short game area, put the towel out there at a certain number, make sure you pace it off so you have an understanding of what's going on, and then hit some shots and vary it. Make sure you use this 54 degree wedge or a 53 degree wedge. If you have a 56, use that if that's your second wedge. But understand how you can hit that little flighted shot where it lands on the green and then it releases just a little bit. And know what your stock number is so that you have an idea when you get out into the playing conditions how you can perform, because not every 50-yard shot is going to be the exact same. Hole location is going to be a big part of it. In the front, in the back, in the middle, whatever it may be. That is an FJ fix.